live stream has started. So welcome to this meeting of Subcommittee A of the Licensing and Public Protection Committee of Birmingham City Council. I'm Councillor Philip Davis and I'll be chairing the hearing today. Could we please all mute our microphones for the moment in order to improve the sound quality while I talk about procedure? And then, with the exception of committee members, if you could turn off your cameras, as that will allow us, that will assist us with the bandwidth. Committee members will have their cameras switched on throughout the hearing. And obviously, if everyone has got their mobiles on silent and are in suitably quiet rooms, then that would be appreciated. As it's obviously very important that, given the nature of this meeting, everyone can hear us appropriately. Any distractions brought to my attention could result in the meeting being suspended temporarily or to another date and time under the regulations for these types of meetings. I also confirm this is a public meeting and is therefore being live streamed on the City Council's website so that the general public can view it. Formal agenda is as follows. Item 1, notice of recording webcast. I advise the meeting to note that this meeting will be webcast for live or subsequent broadcast by the Council's meeting YouTube site, and that members of the press and public may record and take photographs, except where there are confidential or exempt items. Item 2, declarations of interest. Members are reminded they must declare all relevant pecuniary and non-pecuniary interests arising from any business to be discussed at this meeting. If a disclosable pecuniary interest is declared, a member must not speak or take part in the agenda item. Any declarations will be recorded in the minutes of the meeting. Item 3, apologies and notification of non-paying members. There are no substitutions today. 4, minutes. I confirm and sign the minutes of the meeting held on 26th of July 2021 at 10 AM. Okay, those are the formal items. So we move on to the main business, and I welcome you again to this hearing for an application for expedited review in respect of the licence for the George V Common Lane, Sheldon, Birmingham B26 3BP. As I said, I'm Councillor Philip Davis, chairing the meeting today. With me are two other members of the subcommittee, Councillors Martin Straker-Wells and Councillor Bob Beecham. Also present in the meeting are the following officers: the licensing officer, Mr. Bipinda Nandra, committee manager, Ms. Katie Townsend, committee lawyer, Ms. Joanne Swampillai. And then we have obviously a number of parties here today representing people who want to make representations to the committee. Firstly, the applicant for this review, which is Westminster Police. So, Mr. Taj, are you receiving us, if I can use that phrase?
Good morning, Chair. Yes, I'm receiving loud and clear. I'm also here in attendance with PC Reader.
Okay, thank you very much for that. And then next, those making representations, Ms. Christine McCulloch from Licensing Enforcement of the City Council. Ms. McCulloch?
Yes, Chair, thank you.
Okay. And again, Councillor Tilsley representing residents in his ward of Sheldon. Councillor Tilsley. You're muted, but anyway, I can see you, Councillor Tilsley, so I know you're...
Thank you. We're in and out.
Right, okay. And then next, the licence holder and their representative, Mr. George Domleo. You're representing the licensee, Mr. Domleo.
Correct, Chair. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. And with you is Mr. Ken Talbot, who I know is still on the connection today. Mr. Talbot?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, thank you very much. So my first question to any person making representations today, does anyone wish to withdraw their representations? If you could just speak if you wish to withdraw. No. Okay, so no one wishes to withdraw their representation, and so I assume all parties have read and understood the licensing committee's procedural rules, which have been sent out with a notice for this meeting. I may, at my discretion, amend the procedural rules to reflect the fact that this meeting is taking place online. But obviously, not. If I do, this will not impact on the party's right to a fair hearing. We'll be using the chat function in Microsoft Teams to communicate, along with the normal arrangements. And what I need you to do, if you would, all those attending, is just confirm your attendance by going to the chat facility and typing in your own name. So if you would do that, then that is also a useful record for the committee manager. So let's all put that into the chat, please. If I can find it. Chat is usually the speech bubble above the normal, above your, at the top of your computer. So if we type it in, I'm just doing that for myself. And then that will list as a useful list of attendance as well. Okay. Okay, thank you very much for that. We'll keep the chat function open for the duration of the meeting, but you can intervene in the normal way. But I can't necessarily see every person on my screen, but the officers will no doubt indicate. And again, verbal prompt is very useful to me if you want to come in. With the exception, I don't think anybody's dialed in on an audio telephone today, so we're all on the same system. With the exception of subcommittee members, please keep your camera off unless you are the person speaking, as this assists with the broadband. Preliminary points. I think this is chiefly addressed to Mr. Domleo and Mr. Hodge. Does anybody want to make any preliminary points at this stage? Mr. Domleo?
Nothing from me, Chair. Thank you.
Mr. Taj?
Hi there. Yes, I've got CCTV ready that was shown at the expedited review. This was prepared in case it was a different committee. I believe everyone on the committee has seen the CCTV. Just want to check if you wanted to see that again or if it's not necessary. For myself, my representation, I don't think it's necessary. But if you wish to see it, I'm happy to show it.
It is the same committee, if I'm right, colleagues, isn't it? We all three met to determine the initial review. So my view would be that unless I'm requested by another party, that we don't need to see that. Would you agree, colleagues? Okay, you're nodding. Yes. Okay. So thank you for that, Mr. Taj. But I think we will, as you say, work on the basis that we don't need to see that again.
Thank you.
If there are no other preliminary points from anyone, I'll just continue to talk about the procedure briefly. Firstly, the licensing officer, Mr. Nandra, will present the report. Then the applicant will be asked to present their case, and we're asking that Westminster Police keep this to approximately 20 minutes. Next, those making representations will be invited to make their case, and again, approximately 20 minutes will be allowed for this part of the hearing, not per person. Then the licence holder and their representative will be invited to make their case, and again around 20 minutes for this part of the hearing. So again, if all parties can speak slowly and clearly, that will assist the communication, at least for those watching on live stream. Please note that members of the subcommittee will be able to ask questions at any stage, but we'll try to do so at the conclusion of each presentation. Cross-examination by the applicant and those making representations will not be permitted unless the members consider it appropriate. At any point in the meeting, you, as I say, want to raise an issue, then please try to get my attention by speaking, but you can also use the chat function. If at any point you can't hear or having problems with the internet connection, again, please use the chat facility to alert the meeting manager. The committee may, on occasion, need to take legal advice. At my discretion, I may ask all parties to wait in this meeting while members and the relevant officers withdraw to take legal advice using a separate meeting within Microsoft Teams. We'll then return to the meeting and continue. Please note that if any time the live stream being broadcast on the City Council website fails, I'll ask you all to mute your microphones and cameras and to stop speaking until the live stream is restored. And if we go into private session at any point, the meeting manager will pause the live stream. Once the private part of the meeting is over, I'll ask the meeting manager to confirm that the live stream is resumed before we continue. At the close of the hearing, I'll invite all parties to make a brief closing submission, and I stress no decision will be taken until all the evidence has been heard. At the decision-making stage...
Councillor Tilsley's indicating, Chairman.
Oh, yes, okay. Councillor Tilsley, do you want to come in?
Just as a question of form and procedure, Chairman, could I check whether the declarations that I forwarded to both the police and licensing officers have been circulated to members of the licensing committee?
Let me ask Mr. Nandra, or committee manager. You will have received, Mr. Nandra, you will have received those declarations via Councillor Tilsley.
Yeah, the representations were part of Councillor Tilsley's main representation, and it's been disclosed to all parties, and it's part of the report.
Yes, okay, so that's a yes then, I think, Councillor Tilsley.
Thank you.
We have a bundle of documents effectively, which we can... Thank you for that. Okay, so at the conclusion of the hearing, I'll invite all parties to make a brief closing submission, and no decision will be taken until all the evidence has been heard. Then at the decision-making stage, the members and the relevant officers will withdraw from the meeting in order to determine the decision. We'll go into a separate Microsoft Teams meeting. In the event that the members need to clarify any point, parties will be contacted by telephone by the meeting manager. The members will then make a decision, and the decision will be notified within the statutory time limits, as per usual. Okay, I hope that's reasonably straightforward. So with that, I'd like to ask the licensing officer, Mr. Nandra, to present his report, please. Mr. Nandra.
Thank you, Chair. On the 4th of November 2021, Chief Constable Thompson, on behalf of West Midlands Police, applied for a review under Section 53A of the Licensing Act 2003, as amended by the Violent Crime Reduction Act 2006, of the premises licence granted to Punch Partnerships Ptl Limited in respect of the George V, Common Lane, Sheldon, Birmingham, B26 3BP. A review of the premises licence is required following an application for an expedited review under Section 53A of the Licensing Act 2003. The application was accompanied by the required certificate, see Appendix 1. Within 48 hours, excluding non-working days, of receipt of an application made under Section 53A, the licensing authority is required to consider whether it is appropriate to take interim steps pending determination of the review of the premises licence. Such a review to be held within 28 days after the day of its receipt, review that licence and reach a determination on that review. Licensing Subcommittee A met on the 8th of November 2021 to consider whether to take any interim steps and resolve that the designated premises supervisor be removed and that the premises licence be suspended pending a review of the licence. A copy of the decision is attached at Appendix 2. The review application was advertised by the licensing authority in accordance with the regulations. The closing date for responsible authorities and other persons ended on the 19th of November 2021. A representation has been received from Birmingham City Council Licensing Enforcement, attached to which were audio files that have been disclosed to the premises licence holder and their legal representative. See Appendix 3. A representation has been received from other persons. See Appendix 4. A copy of the current premises licence is attached at Appendix 5, and the site location plans are attached at Appendix 6. When carrying out its licensing functions, a licensing authority must have regard to Birmingham City Council Statement of Licensing Policy and the guidance issued by the Secretary of State under Section 182 of the Licensing Act 2003. The licensing authority's functions under the Licensing Act 2003 are to promote the licensing objectives. Councillors, the options available to you today are to modify the conditions of licence, exclude a licensable activity from the scope of the licence, remove the designated premises supervisor, suspend the licence for a period not exceeding 3 months, revoke the licence, or to take no action. In addition, the subcommittee will need to decide what action, if any, should be taken regarding the interim steps imposed on the 8th of November 2021. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. So we now go on to Westminster Police and Mr. Taj.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be taking the committee through the last couple of appointments at Georgia 5th, events linked to those appointments and why it's given credence to concerns moving forward with Georgia 5th. The licence holders Punch Partnerships Limited operates the premises on a tenancy basis and has no day-to-day involvement with the premises. The tenant becomes designated premises supervisor for Georgia 5th and oversees the overall operation. There are serious concerns that this use of the licence does not work at Georgia 5th. Since 2017, there have been 4 different designated premise supervisors nominated for Georgia 5th, and 3 of those have been appointed in the last 14 months. Of the 4 appointments, 1 has been removed due to interim steps currently in place, 2 have been sacked by the licence holder, and 1 has been forced to leave due to the issues associated with the premises. Elaine Medford was appointed DPS in September 2017 and remained until August 2020 when she was sacked by Ken Talbot, area manager for Georgia 5th. In the months leading up to Elaine being sacked during COVID-19 restrictions being in place, there have been numerous noise complaints and reports of residents living in fear of the premises. These complaints detailed large groups of customers and cars gathering on the front car park on several occasions, playing loud music, shouting profanities at residents walking by, drag racing, smoking and dealing cannabis until the early hours. Ken Talbot informed us on the 18th of August 2020 that he had instructed his legal team to remove Elaine as a designated premises supervisor and told her to cease trading at the premises. The reason given by Ken was that she had lost control of the pub, allowing customers to do as they please with the antisocial behaviour mentioned, as if they were running the premises. This course of action was welcomed from Ken. However, further concerns had come to light regarding a farewell party that had been scheduled in response to Elaine's sacking. Given that she had already been instructed to stay closed, there were concerns there was a nothing to lose attitude with the event scheduled for 21st of August 2020. Ken stated he would deal with it. In the wake of the recent suspension of the licence, a resident has expressed concerns of the premises upholding this suspension, given that previously a farewell party was held on the front car park when the premises was meant to be shut. 1 week later, August 28, 2020, Pauline Bromley was appointed as the new DPS. Immediately upon reopening, the new DPS identifies several problem regulars and bars these individuals, one of which was attempting to deal drugs at the premises. This is a proactive measure from the newly appointed DPS in an attempt to address fundamental issues with the premises. Unfortunately, this leads to several acts of reprisals taken against Pauline Bromley and Georgia 5th between September 3rd, 2021 and September 13, 2020. These all reported to the police. Individual bar regulars attempt on several occasions to use the pub as normal. When reminded by the DPS they are barred, threats to smash the pub and return at a later time are made. On one occasion, the DPS was harassed whilst out driving. There was another barred individual driving a vehicle erratically, flashing their lights in an attempt to get the DPS to pull over. Due to the traffic, the DPS had to pull over, and the offender pulled up in front of the DPS, shouting from his window, making threats to chop up and shoot the DPS. Another incident occurred when the DPS was out walking and another barred individual driving by threatened the DPS with the following comments aimed at her: "Have a good day, this could be your last." This series of events eventually accumulates in physical damage to the property, with a masked offender smashing the double pane glass windows of the pub and glass door panels. One offender also approaches the venue with open buckets of paint, emptying the contents of paint over the car park. They both flee the scene. The premises needed boarding up to secure due to the extent of the damage. This incident was reported in the media and is very well known to local residents and any subsequent DPS who have been appointed since. I've included pictures that was taken from that media article showing the premises post the incident, which shows it's been boarded up, damaged by the paint, and it's included in my evidence pack on pages 6 through to 10. The local residents were all aware of how Pauline Bromley was attempting to turn the pub around for the better by borrowing problem individuals, addressing the issues with the premises, and actively promoting the licensing objectives. The residents have taken action themselves by informing local councillors and responsible authorities on numerous occasions of the issues with George V. However, there has been a big emphasis on remaining anonymous from all the residents who have provided statements to responsible authorities. This is the level of intimidation and fear the premises imposes onto the local community. A further incident was reported on September 13th, midday. A male hiding in the bushes outside George V waits for the DPS to enter the premises. Once they witness the DPS enter the premises, they approach the building and begin to pour a flammable liquid over the external areas of the premises and eventually pour it through the letterbox. The offender is interrupted by the DPS before they can ignite the liquid and then flee the premises. The exact reasoning for Pauline Bromley's departure from George V has not been stated to licensing. However, given the number of encounters of harassment and physical violence to her business in a short space of time, it appears she was forced out. The license holders submit an application to bury the designated premise supervisor on October 26, 2 months after Pauline's original appointment. Mr. Gurdik Bassi is appointed as DPS, who has a grand reopening 3 days later on October 29th. On November 2nd, only 3 days after reopening, anonymous complaints were received from residents who could not understand how the premises was allowed to reopen, noting that a male and female they recognized as the local drug dealers had returned to the pub, and this was taking place within view of door staff within the car park. November 4th, a national lockdown was issued due to the coronavirus pandemic, and the premises would not open again under Mr. Bassi's management. March 2021, Westminster Police had reasons to attend the premises. Upon arrival, they found cannabis cultivation equipment that was being removed from the private living quarters of George V. Entry had not been forced to the property. The DPS stated they didn't know what was going on at the premises when questioned. The license holder was made aware of this and served a notice to Mr. Bassi, the then DPS, on his tenancy and removed it immediately as a designated premise supervisor. In June 2021, Andrew Whitecross was appointed as the designated premise supervisor. Ken Talbot has described Andrew Whitecross as a strong multi-venue operator and was the reason for his selection at George V to take it forward. On 19th of June 2021, still during COVID-19 restrictions, calls were received to Westminster Police stating a group of up to 100 people were on the car park of George V, and approximately 20 of those were fighting. A single car with 3 officers was first at the premises and was pelted with bottles as they drove by the premises. This led to them needing to retreat to a safe distance. The police needed to deploy public order tactics with 2 police vans that consist of 16 additional police officers in full protective gear being required to disperse the disorder taking place in the car park. The license holders were made aware of this disorder and in response submitted a minor variation to the license, adding a condition barring drinking on the car park from 6:30 p.m. daily. The DPS Andrew Whitecross was not present during this disorder. It has transpired Mr. Whitecross does not have day-to-day control of the premises and only visits the premises every so often. The premise in its current form has a premise license holder not involved in the day-to-day running of the premises, who has appointed a DPS also not involved in the day-to-day running of the premises. That DPS has appointed a living manager by the name of Atlanta to run the premises. Local neighbourhood police officers visited in September to talk to Atlanta about the history of the premises, and Atlanta stated she had experience dealing with problem pubs in Birmingham and did not require assistance. September 26, Westminster Police began receiving many emails from local residents and councillors regarding the excessive noise coming from the use of the car park, fears regarding drag racing taking place, and further claims of drug dealing. There was also a call from Atlanta herself, stating she was having trouble with customers, stating they were in her face. There was also a substantial amount of litter being left behind, such as nitrous oxide canisters. Westminster Police have continued to receive emails until the eventual closure of the premises on Friday the 5th of November, the day after Westminster Police had applied for an expedited review. The expedited review was applied for due to a serious crime taking place at the premises on October 30th. That evening, a call was made to the police by a female reporting her boyfriend had been beaten up by 5 males at Georgia 5th. One of the offenders had a metal bat obtained from behind the bar. The caller reports that the injured party sustained injuries to their head, knuckles, and mouth, which had blood pouring out. Licensing attended the premises on the 1st of November to investigate the report. Atlanta was present during the visit and was unaware of any incident taking place on that date, given she was away in another city. A request was made to view CCTV, however, this was not possible, as she apparently had no access to the CCTV, despite the premise license condition to make recordings available. A request was made to view the premises incident log. Again, as per the premises license condition, this was also not possible as Atlanta had no access to it. This was stated to only be possible when the DPS was at the property, who we've just mentioned is not often at the premises. There's clear evidence that the premises was acting in a non-compliant way with its conditions and failing to promote the licensing objectives. Details were left with Atlanta to pass on to the DPS, and a subsequent visit was arranged for November 4th with Andrew Whitecross to view the CCTV and the incident log. The CCTV was made available on that visit, however, no incident log has been available to this day. At the time of the incident, Andrew himself was on holiday. The CCTV I referred to is the one we've seen previously. The CCTV shows a disorder take place in the main bar area. A male is confronted by another male and it appears that an exchange of words takes place. A third male runs off into a room that leads out to a beer garden. This male attracts other males into the property who rush to the main bar area and gather around the original 2 males. A male comes in from the beer garden, goes behind the bar and rushes around to the main bar area. At this point, he's still behind the bar. This area is also a non-public area. This male passes a member of staff who is also behind the bar, sitting down on their mobile phone. The member of staff pays no attention to the male's actions. The male goes into a back of house area off camera and immediately returns with what's been described as a baseball bat and steps out from behind the bar. The baseball bat is in clear view of CCTV and the lone bar staff member who does not react. The disorder involves approximately 8 males who surround the victim. At least 2 of this group throw punches, hitting the victim. It becomes unclear at this point due to the sheer numbers involved who inflict what injuries on the victim. This eventually spills out onto the car park. The staff member does not call the police and shortly afterwards resumes serving customers at the premises as if nothing had happened. Police officers visit the victim at a location disclosed by the caller. The attending officers recorded the meeting, and this has been viewed by myself. The victim did not want to identify themselves or report the incident, but does disclose to the police the extent of his injuries. And while disclosing this, he does state that someone hit him with a baseball bat, and then refers to his back, which shows scratches or bruising. The victim can also be seen to have a black eye developing. After Westminster Police served expedited review papers on November the 4th, the premises license holder voluntarily closes the premises on November 5th, ahead of the expedited review taking place on November 8th, which, as mentioned previously, resulted in a DPS being removed and the license suspended until today's review. November 11th, Westminster Police Licensing was informed by the license holder that Andrew Whitecross and his management team will be vacating on November 15th. There were concerns raised by the premise license holder that licensed activity may take place at the premises over the weekend before the management team vacated, and that they were unable to get to the premises before the 15th of November to secure the site. This information from the license holder was appreciated. However, Birmingham demonstrates the lack of control they have of their own building and their ability at times to ensure offences aren't committed, something you would expect of a responsible operator. Although the license was suspended at the time of this potentially happening, you would expect more to be done to prevent crime and disorder happening on your own property. The history laid out demonstrates a clear pattern of failings from the license holder to ensure the license objectives are promoted. There's a deep-rooted issue with the premises being linked to antisocial behaviour because of the customer base who have, for a significant period of time, been allowed to do as they please at George V, with no regard to the local residents, managers, or even the police. This attitude from the customer base that frequent the premises has brewed over the years, with managers unwilling to promote the licensing objectives by turning a blind eye and letting the customers run the pub as they please. This has made the task extremely difficult for a new operator wanting to promote the license objectives, as we have seen this attempt fail, almost culminating in the premises being burnt down. There have been many consultations with the premises with various responsible authorities to address these issues throughout the change of management. Through all these attempts to restore the pub to its former days, the residents have remained and had to live with antisocial behaviour and detriment to their lives for years. A number of residents have shared their fears and impact of daily life because of George V. The street racing with constant wheel spins through the night causes a large amount of noise, whilst also raising fears around safety and potential damage to property. A shift worker has stated how they have to sleep away from their house during the week because they have to be up early in the morning, and antisocial behaviour on the premises won't allow this. The premises has impacted other shift workers who also have to be up early for work. Whilst at work, it has been stated how they worry for their family and find it hard they aren't able to assist when they are calling from the home concerned. Residents have made claims that local drug dealers regularly attend the premises and deal on the front car park in view of the door staff. The residents, unfortunately, feel so scared and intimidated by the premises, they are concerned of reprisals should they be named, and have emphasised on several occasions to remain anonymous. Since the closure of George V on November 5th, a shift worker has been able to move back home in the week, and the households are feeling more comfortable inside their own home. However, very much concerned this could all be temporary, and if the premises should open again, the problems will return with it. There have been several managerial changes at George V, and the antisocial behaviour and impact to residents still remains. There have been additional conditions added to the licence, which have proven to be ineffective. It is the stance of Westminster Police that no conditions would mitigate the problems currently associated with the premises, and if continued to operate in its current form, the premises would continue to fail to promote the licence objectives. Westminster Police believe that revocation of the licence is the only way to resolve the culture of crime, disorder, and antisocial behaviour linked to George V. In line with the Licensing Act, Westminster Police have been liaising with the licence holder and their solicitor. They appear to comprehend the gravity of the situation and the impact that the premises is having on local residents. Through their solicitor, the venue has proposed a period of closure up to 8 weeks, whilst a consultation takes place with responsible authorities around a change of concept. They further propose a condition similar to the premise licence holder shall not reopen the premises nor appoint a DPS until full consultation has been carried out with Westminster Police and the licensing authority, and on approval has been provided by these parties. The proposal is quite significant that has been offered. If the committee are minded that this option is the most proportionate way forward, then Westminster Police licensing team will continue to engage and consult with the license holder and the solicitor in relation to this. However, Westminster Police still believe that a license revocation is the only way to ensure that the issues raised by all interested parties are resolved. Thank you, Chair. You're on mute, Chair.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Mr. Taj, for that comprehensive presentation. Now, are there any questions from members? Councillor Martin, straight forward. Sorry, Councillor Beecham, you.
No, carry on, Martin.
Okay.
I have two main questions, Chair. Unless I've got it wrong, the description that we've just been given seems to me to amount to little less than negligence. And the second thing that is a concern for me is that the police appears to have been on the premises quite often dealing with antisocial behaviour, and also even dealing with difficulties to the one particular DPS who was being threatened. And so my second question would be, do you feel any lessons have been learned that the police could actually say implies an improvement in terms of the way this situation is being managed? Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Taj?
Yeah, thanks for the question. In terms of lessons being learned, I'll say potentially no, because it's been building up, and it's got worse to the point that after all that's happened, we're now here at an expedited review.
And just
Okay.
if I may, just for clarity,
Yep.
Do you feel that present at the time when things were obviously getting worse? But I suppose I'm really interested in the relationship between the license holder and the DPS. Do you feel that in any shape or form they understood their accountabilities?
Yes, Andrew Whitecross has been known as a multi-venue operator, so he's fully aware of his responsibilities in regards to the Licensing Act. So the way he's chosen to manage George V has been nothing more than negligible, and he's chosen to have it this way, despite all the concerns and issues with the premises. Knowing it's a difficult operation has left it in the management of this woman called Atlanta, who clearly is overwhelmed and out of her depth, and has chosen to remain distant from the property.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Beecham?
Thank you, Chairman. It appears that she is out of her depth with this. Has any arrests been made with anyone by the police as a result of the goings-on that have taken place?
Thanks for the question. That will be managed by the investigation team, so I'm not aware of that information in full of where they are with the investigations, if the issues that have happened.
Thank you. You are saying that it is a lost cause and just allowed to go its own way in such a frightening manner and for such a long time that it appears that any police intervention hasn't been effective in any way. Have you a comment on that?
No, the comment would be that we agree with you. There's been numerous conversations with the license holder. We've visited the premise several times. There's been new conditions put onto the license. There's been DPS changes, and here we are today, worse than ever.
In their submission of changing the whole aspect of the place. Have you had any information or dealings with them on that side of it?
Exact details of the change of concept, no, we have not had any further information on what that concept may be.
Have you requested it?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Have you requested it, or are you just simply awaiting them to get in touch with you regarding that?
Yes, waiting to see what they propose forward.
Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you very much for those questions. No questions from me. So thank you again to Mr. Targe for that presentation. And now I'll move on to others making representations. And firstly to Ms. Christine McCulloch from Licensing Enforcement. Ms. McCulloch?
Yes, Chair, thank you. I'm from Licensing Enforcement, and since 2016, we've received numerous complaints from local residents regarding the nuisance caused by George V Public House. The majority of problems seem to be regarding the noise emanating from the premises, the people and cars gathering on the car park, and the noise caused by them. It was also alleged that drug dealing was frequently taking place. Matters regarding noise have been reported and were reported en masse to Environmental Health for their attention, but unfortunately I'm unable to say what action has been taken by them. The premises does have a condition attached to its licence for a noise limiter device to be fitted. During a visit I made to the premises in 2016 as a result of a complaint about noise, I found that the noise limiter device wasn't actually working correctly, it wasn't fitted. It was rectified, and I believe that it was calibrated by Environmental Health. However, it didn't seem to work because we've still had complaints more recently regarding the noise. In 2018, a further visit was made by a colleague of mine, another enforcement officer, again as a result of loud music from the premises. It was alleged that drugs were being dealt with on the premises. West Midlands Police were informed of this at the time. During 2020, a complaint was received concerning the vehicles on the car park and the disturbance that they were causing to local residents. It was alleged at this time, the residents were concerned at this time that the DPS did not have any control over the premise, over the business whatsoever. And in fact, on the 13th of August 2020, an email was received from solicitors acting on behalf of the licence holder stating that the DPS had been removed from the premises about the conduct at the business. That is actually attached in my bundle. Oh, it's actually in my report. I've enclosed the draft of the email when it reads, "We act for the premises licence holder, Punch Partnerships Pty Limited. Because of complaints received about the conduct of the premises, we wish to remove the DPS Elaine Medford with immediate effect. A new operator will take over with effect from 25th of August and an appropriate application will be submitted. We appreciate the effect of this will be the premises cannot sell alcohol. We can confirm our client's area manager, copied in, has advised Elaine accordingly." So at this point in 2020, we have the premises licence holder completely aware that there are problems at the premises, and as a result, they were removing the DPS. So then we went on, and then in July 2021, this year, complaints started to come in again en masse. We received more complaints than ever. It seemed after lockdown that the business had worsened. Some of the issues again were vehicles playing loud music on the car park, loud music from the premises, fighting, smashing glasses and drug dealing. To deal with this, the licence holder submitted a minor variation to stop people drinking on the car park after 6:30 p.m. in the evening. However, information was received from residents that this was still going on, that people were still drinking and people were still congregating on the car park after this time. This was a condition that the licence holder had put forward themselves to try and alleviate the problems. Okay, so taking into account that this is something that they have put forward, this could not be met They were not in a position to enforce this condition. So if they can't enforce this condition for stopping people on the car park, how are they going to enforce the other conditions on the licence? How are they going to stop the serious crime and disorder that's being caused there? Residents won't come forward. They're too scared. I've even had one complainant completely withdrew their complaint. When they found out that the matter was going to committee, they did not want to be involved anymore for fear of reprisals. As part of my submission, I did attach some audio footage of the noise from the premises. These were all sent to me as video. But because I can't show them, because nobody would give their permission for them to be showed, I recorded the audio. If the committee wish, I can play some of the audio footage after, but I believe that it has been sent as part of my representation. I was at a meeting with West Midlands Police on the 24th of September at the premises. I met with the area manager and I met with Andrew Whitecross, the DPS. At this point, they admitted, Mr. Talbot, on behalf of the licence holder, admitted that they were fully aware of the problems that were being caused at the premises, but they believe that the current DPS, Andrew Whitecross, could control the situation. Andrew Whitecross was not present at the premises. He was present at the meeting, but he wasn't going to be present at the premises on a day-to-day basis. It was a business that he ran. As part of his business, he had several premises over an area. As part of his business, he would appoint a manager, a strong manager, who could run the premises for him. On this particular occasion, Andrew Whitecross had appointed Atlanta. When I raised some complaints with him about comments that Atlanta had made regarding loud music when there'd been a death in the area, and the hearse would be approaching at a certain time. When she was asked to turn the music down, she was very abusive towards them and refused. Andrew Whitecross, when I put this to him, disagreed with that 100% and said that was not her style. She would not have done that. She would have been respectful and she was strong. So even at that point, Andrew Whitecross, although he's not subject to this meeting today, I understand that, believed that what he had put in place was going to solve the problem. In fact, it was sold that he'd been sought after, he'd been approached by the licence holder to come in and run this premises because he was used to doing this type of thing. So they put a lot of confidence in him. But we put some steps in at the meeting, the car park. We wanted to secure the car park. We wanted the smoking area removed from the front of the premises. It was to go to the back to try and cut down on the gathering at the front, to try and cut down on the amount of cars that there would be at the front. I believe that the steps were put in place, but it still didn't stop the cars congregating. It still didn't stop the activity, and it still didn't stop the noise from the music, and the premises just carried on in the same way. I actually received a letter, an anonymous letter from the residents as B26. That's actually attached to Appendix 7. And if I can just read that letter. It says, I'm sure you are aware of the situation at George V Pub, Common Lane, Sheldon, B26, but wanted to let you know what had happened this weekend. And we received this letter on the 2nd of October. We had music blaring away from 6 p.m. until 12:15 a.m. and all the doors opened. Everyone was drinking on the front of the pub, even though this is not supposed to be happening. It only calmed down after the local police saw the unsociable behaviour and moved them on. But we had the same problems on Saturday, 30th October as well. This situation is getting out of hand and the residents from surrounding roads are living in the Bronx. How are we ever going to solve this? The Liberal MP has said it's owned by Heineken. We will have a struggle. I'm sure someone is getting paid to ignore how we are living here. There is open drug dealing and the alleyway at the side of the pub has become the pub toilet. There is no point putting up a chain to secure car park once everyone has gone home. Please, please, can you help us? We are getting to become prisoners in our own homes. The residents around there are desperate. I've also attached it to Appendix 9, and I'd ask you to read some of the comments on Appendix 9 of my report. It just explains how difficult the residents are finding life. We have got people working shifts. People can't enjoy their own homes. They can't enjoy life. It must be soul destroying to live in the area with this going on. On the 3rd of November, I received video footage. Again, I've taken the recording from the audio. This is attached at Appendix 8. It is very loud. The music is extremely loud. I hope that the comments that I've highlighted show the impact that this is having on the lives of the local community and the constant breach of crime and disorder and public nuisance that is being caused at the premises. I have had discussion with the licence holder, like the police and their legal representative, about how they would like to move forward with the premises, how it would be rebranded and how they would work with responsible authorities before reopening. I thank them for their approach, but I wonder if it is too late. Whilst I appreciate that some of the problems were caused by people congregating outside and not necessarily the customers of the business, the majority of issues were caused by the customers taking over and controlling the premises. In fact, during my meeting in September, the area manager did in fact tell me that they had removed DPS because they'd seen customers going behind the bar to serve themselves while the DPS was sitting in the corner and allowing it to happen. No control. No management that they could put in can be strong enough to control this. I believe that a rebranding and attempting to change the presentation of the business may not stop the current clientele from attending. I don't think that the issues will be resolved by rebranding, because even if it's rebranded as an eatery, as a family pub, it is still going to be a pub where people can come in and drink and people can gather. And these people have been gathering here for years. Simply rebranding, I don't believe will stop them. As I say, the licence holders have had years and years of this antisocial behaviour. The licence holder was aware of the problems during August 2020, and that's confirmed by the email. So it is with that I would ask the committee to consider that the way forward is that the licence be revoked. However, if you are minded to accept the plans put forward by the licence holder, licensing enforcement would be willing to work with them to try and ensure that the premises can comply with the law. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cullen, for that. We go straight on now to Councillor Tilsley, and then there'll be members' questions after that. So, Councillor Tilsley.
Thank you very much indeed, Chairman. I think officers can confirm that probably the busiest time of my weekend was Friday night, Saturday night and Sunday night, when I was getting continual emails from residents, which I faithfully forwarded to officers and the police at the time of reception. I think the presentation by PC Taj really gives a graphic indication of the problems that there have been at the public house, not just over the last couple of years, but over a considerable length of time. We've also had the presentation from licensing, and I've been in contact with licensing very heavily this year because of the very high level number of complaints that I have been receiving. And it all emanates down to noise, drugs, music. Indeed, reference was just made about a funeral that was taking place, and the response that was received by that was given by Atlanta when she was asked to tone down the music. I think the comment at the time by her was, "It's my pub. I will play the music as loud as I want." End of story. In my submission, Chairman, members of the licensing committee, the public house was built in the 50s. It was a centre of the community. However, that community has changed markedly. The residents are mainly elderly, and new incomers are mainly Muslim who are not going to use the public house in any way, shape or form. It has attracted customers over a very wide area. The locals don't use it. It has such a bad reputation that the locals will not touch it with a barge pole. And as a consequence, they have been attracting customers via social media, not necessarily to drink and to relax, but for other ulterior motives, as has been explained very graphically by PC Taj. The impact that the pub has had on local residents cannot be underestimated. Many of them are living in fear, and I mean fear. As has been stated, some people who are on shifts have to go away to sleep so that they can continue to work and earn a living. I accept that there have been some attempts, particularly when Paula Bromley was put in from the Hobbs Moat, to tighten up on the control of the customers. However, as PC Taj stated, she was run out of town. She couldn't control the situation. And that was a strong manager. Now, if a strong manager can't deal with it, it doesn't offer much hope for the future. Now, I did have a meeting with Mr. Domleo and Ken Talbot on the phone last week. And I think it would be fair to say that they accept all the issues that have been raised. And their way forward would be to have a food bias and a rebranding. However, my feeling now, having reflected on the situation, is that the situation has deteriorated to such a level that I don't think that local people would, under any circumstances, provide any custom for the pub. As I say, the community is changing. Even today, there is a news item in the Times that the turnover of housing is 16% over the last 2 years. Now, that's an enormous turnover, and I'm seeing it in Sheldon very graphically. And the incomers are coming from Small Heath and Bordsley Green, and they are not people that are going to use the pub in the future. As I've said, it's had serious impact on residents' lives and deterioration of health. As far as I'm concerned, it is an unruly house. It has been an unruly house. And if it is opened again, it will continue to be an unruly house. Even police have been attacked. Can't be allowed in Birmingham in 2021. So from a practical point of view, Heineken have been losing money on this outlet for a number of years, and that was established in the meeting that we had last week. And I don't think that there really is a future for this establishment. It's difficult to think of an alternative use. Pubs going out of business have normally transferred to Tesco Expresses or the Co-op. Well, the Co-op are there and Tesco are just round the corner. There is the option of creches. There are a number of creches in the area as well. But, we can't carry on with the way that we have for the last 6 years at least. And there has to be a way forward. And I don't think, frankly, that the pub has got a future. In your pack, Chairman, as we established earlier in the meeting, I did forward it to you, to the police and licensing, the complaints that I had got. I had to assure the residents that their anonymity would be respected. I have the originals and I will keep the originals to protect my residents. That's all I wish to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Tilsley. So now I'll go to questions on to either Ms McCulloch or Mr. Councillor Tilsley from members. Councillor Beecham, do you have any questions? I think you're on mute, Councillor Beecham.
So I am. It's a disease with this. I failed to see what the police and all the people that are taking part in this fracas, as it is, cannot see beyond it to somewhere or some sort of control that would be sufficient to alleviate and do away with the problems that they're having. It's surely not beyond the wit of Birmingham and their controls to just give up on the place. Is there anything that either of them can say that they think would be likely to take place on these premises to allow them to continue in this or another form?
I'll take that as a question to Ms McCulloch, because Councillor Tilsley made a very clear statement about usage. So, Ms McCulloch, do you want to comment on Councillor Beecham's question?
Yes, I think sorry if I'm a bit confused. Are you asking if there's any way that you feel that this could be solved with respects to it still remaining as a licensed premises?
Yeah, with an alternative use. Probably it's about the rebranding proposal, isn't it? Which we'll hear about shortly. But do you have any views about that?
I do. I did speak to them, and I have to say, hats off to them. I am impressed that they are, that they do want to try and sort this out. This is their business, and at the end of the day, in the current climate, we don't want any more businesses to go bump. However, I feel that looking back at the problems that have been experienced, that the licence holder has tried in the past to resolve the issues. They've tried putting in a strong DPS to control the business. It hasn't happened. And I think that some of the problems are not from the customers. It's from the point being used as a point, as a focal point for people to congregate. The amount of cars, the video footage I've seen of the amount of cars that are on the front. Okay, some of them do go inside and some of them do come outside, but they congregate on the car park. I can't see that if you turned it into an eatery, if you turned it into a family-friendly pub, how it would stop those people still coming in. Because to do that, you need a very strong manager. You need a strong DPS. The business has known about this for years, and the licence holders know about it for years, and they have been trying to do strong DPS, and that has not worked. Obviously, I'll be guided by what yourselves decide, but I personally don't think that a rebranding is going to help. From reading the emails from the residents, they don't know where to go. They don't know what to do. People are scared. They are trying to sell the houses. They can't sell the houses because they're having to disclose the problems that are going on at the pub, and they're frightened about lawsuits after that. So I personally don't see a rebranding will sort the problem. No, sorry.
Councillor Tilsley, did you want to
Entirely
comment on
agree
that?
with that comment. I entirely agree. I've been privately told of people that are trying to sell their houses. There is one sale going through at present, and I had to advise the residents that they should disclose the problems with the pub. Otherwise, they could have subsequent claims against them. And I was assured that they had taken a very low price for the sale of the property on the basis that they had disclosed the antisocial behaviour that was taking place. But people are frightened. They are very, very frightened of the situation. And as the officer just said, I don't believe a rebranding unless you're going to have bouncers on the 2 access points to the car park full time is going to solve the problem. And as I've said in my statement, the reputation of the establishment is so bad in the local area that local residents, even if they were giving food away, would not attend. They would not provide custody.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Straker-Wells, do you have any questions?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm interested in the discussion about whether the reputation that the pub has acquired would completely and absolutely be counterproductive in trying to rebrand it. And Mr. McCulloch actually said no management can be strong enough to control it, given the history that's occurred. And Councillor Tilsley has obviously pointed out the impact on the local community. The question I want to ask from all of this is, has the pub made any attempt to, if you like, ameliorate the difficulties caused by what's happening in the car park, caused by noise, in recognition of the difficulties the residents are having, those who are working shifts, having trouble sleeping and so on, and also having difficulties with noise and loud music? Has any effort really been made at all to take account of the public and how they feel, the local residents and neighbours and how they feel? Thank you, Chair.
I'll take that as to Christine McCulloch. So, Ms. McCulloch, can you give me a short answer on that?
Yes, there were some steps taken. During my meeting in September at the premises, the side door, it was proven that the side door was being left open and the noise was coming from there. They were told that the door had got to be closed. It should be closed. They did close the door. We had a discussion about the car park, about how they were going to secure the car park. I left it with them that they were going to look into ANPR. They were going to get quotes for it. I didn't go back after that visit, so I can't say what actually happened. But in one of the residents' letters, it says what's
ANPR. What's that?
They were going to put ANPR, so they were going to have a traffic management, parking management firm come in to manage the car park for them. So they were going to any cars that
recognition. Automatic number plate recognition, is that it?
Yes. Sorry.
Yes. Okay. Thanks.
Sorry.
Thanks, Councillor Tilsley. Yes,
Sorry.
yes, it's all right. It was just in here. Okay, yes.
They were going to put
Do you
that
want
on
to
the
carry
car park. Yes, they were going to put that on the car. They were going to get a quote of putting that on the car park. That would have been the most cost-effective way for them to manage what was going on the car park. So that would have just recognised the numbers coming on there. I personally failed to see how that was going to have a major impact. If we've got people coming on there to deal drugs, I didn't see that they would be bothered about whether cars were registered to themselves or not. But I don't know. I'm not an expert on it. So that was what was done. The door was closed, but it didn't stop the music coming out. So I don't think they did try. They said they'd put strong DPS in there to try and alleviate the problems. I don't think that they could alleviate the problems, but that was to the extent that the measures were extended in September at my meeting.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you for that. Okay, a lot of those questions obviously are relevant, very relevant to the next submission, which is from the representative of licence holder themselves. So I'd like to move on now. I'd like to very much thank Ms McCulloch and Councillor Tilsley for their presentations today. Thank you very much for this. Okay, so Mr Domleo, we come to your presentation on behalf of the licence holder, please.
Thank you, Chair. And as you've heard, I appear on behalf of Punch Partnerships PTL Limited. I also have with me Ken Talbot, who is the Business Development Manager. Now, I will begin the submission and then Ken may come in at the end if I've missed anything or he wants to add anything in. So by way of background, councillors, Punch Partnerships PTL Limited is a subsidiary of Heineken. Our client acquired these premises from Punch Taverns in 2018. The premises forms part of their leased and tenanted estate, where the vast majority of their pubs are leased out to independent operators to run as their own individual businesses. I would also like to make you aware, councillors, that this is how a lot of other pub companies operate the majority of their premises, including the likes of Green King and Admiral Taverns. Now, Ken and myself can only apologise on behalf of the premise licence holder for the problems that the premises has caused. Heineken want to do what they can now to put the pub on a stable footing. Now, I understand, councillors, and as you've heard from Councillor Tilsley, that the George V pub has been in situ since the 1950s. And I would draw your attention to the bottom of page 24 of your agenda, which is part of Ms McCulloch's representation. There is a complaint from a local resident about halfway down the page, which ends with, may I also add that I enjoy a drink and a good night's entertainment and have had many a fantastic and enjoyable night in this same pub for going on 25 years under several previous managers' tenants. But the current behaviour of this pub has reached severe levels of intolerance. It's evident, councillors, from everything you've heard and from the papers you have been through, that over the last couple of years, with the drug dealers in the area and these undesirable customers, who are the type of customers nobody, including Heineken, want to attract, attending the George V, that it has alienated the local residents from using their local community premises. Councillor Tilsley, in his objection on page 37 of your agenda, states that some 4 years ago, they, meaning the George V, stopped serving family meals and stopped the local Sheldon Residents Association from using the community room. Heineken are a global business and their business is in brewing beer and owning pubs. They do this very successfully, councillors in the whole, with an estate of approximately 2,500 licensed premises across England, Scotland and Wales. The majority of Heineken's licensed premises are very similar to the George V in terms of being located in a residential area to serve the local community. Heineken is a passionate supporter of the Great British Pub and they want the George V to return to being a local pub that the residents can once again be proud of and be their regular customers. From what I can see, councillors, and from what I've heard, in the last few years there have been a couple of different DPS and operators, and these have all tended or attempted to be strong individuals who have been brought in to try and tidy it up and to remove those undesirable customer base. So you've heard from Mr Taj, and it's in his witness statement that Pauline Bromley was appointed as the new DPS in August last year. Immediately upon her appointment, Pauline attempted to get rid of these undesirables, shall we say, and she barred these individuals. Now, unfortunately, this led to several acts of reprisals taken against Pauline by these individuals. About halfway down the same page of Mr Targer's witness statement, he states that the local residents were well aware of how Pauline was attempting to turn the pub around and to address the issues. The residents have taken action themselves by informing local councillors and responsible authorities on numerous occasions of the issues with the George V. Now, these last few operators of the premises appear to have traded it very much the same way, which has been predominantly a kind of a wet-led boozer with music. This doesn't appeal to the local community, hence the complaints from the local residents. It has appealed to the undesirable clientele, hence the issues and the reason we are here today. It is now Heineken's task to make the George V pub again one for the local community. So as I said at the outset, councillors, our client acquired these premises in March 2018. At that time, Elaine Medford was the DPS, and she remained in her role until August of last year. Now, she was removed from her tenancy agreement with Heineken because it's part of the lease and tenanted model as a result of combination of deficit stock and overall incapability, and in response to control complaints from the Licensing Authority and Westminster Police. And as you've heard, Ken was advised of this. He told us, and we then resigned her as a DPS. And on page 1 of Hurram's witness statement, in the last paragraph, he states that this course of action, referring to the removal of Elaine Medford as the DPS and tenant, was welcomed from Ken. Now we jump forward slightly, councillors, to October of last year, and as you've heard from Hurram, Gurdeep Bassi took on the running of the premises and was appointed as the DPS. Now, on the 4th of March of this year, Chris Jones from Westminster Police contacted Heineken to make them aware that the local neighbour police team had attended to the premises to find that cannabis cultivation equipment was being removed from the living quarters, the private living quarters of the premises. Now, the DPS, Mr. Bassi, advised the police that he had no knowledge of the drugs. However, on the 8th of March, our client, Heineken, made me actually aware of this situation and advised that we're going to serve notice on the tenant, and we removed him as a DPS with immediate effect on the same date. Now, in May of this year, Andrew Whitecross was appointed as DPS, but just to make you aware, councillors, Mr. Whitecross, he was the DPS that you removed at the interim steps hearing. He will have no further involvement in the running of these premises. All of the staff who were employed by Mr. Whitecross, including his manager Atlanta, again will have no further involvement with the pub. As you've heard, complaints were then received against the premises around July of this year, which coincided with the hospitality sector returning to some form of normality following the lockdown and the European Football Championships. As a result of this, we consulted, as you've heard, with Westminster Police on the issues, and both Ken and Heineken instructed us to submit a minor variation to add the condition onto the licence, preventing people from being out drinking in this front car park area after 6:30. Further complaints again were received, and on the 24th of September, a meeting was held on site, as you've heard, with the DPS, Ken, Westminster Police and Christina McCulloch, who attend on behalf of the Licensing Authority. And you can see on page 26 of your agenda, councillors, and as you've heard, there were a number of steps that were agreed at the meeting to have immediate effect, hopefully address the issues. These steps included moving the smoking area from the front to the rear. So our client, Heineken, through Ken as the area manager, has been heavily engaged with the responsible authorities since the start of all of these issues, with a view to trying to resolve them and returning the George V into a pub for the local community. Now, Ken and I were served the summary review papers on the 4th of November, as you've heard, and the premises were closed the following day. Our client didn't wait until the interim steps hearing or the outcome of that interim steps hearing on Monday the 8th to instruct the tenant to close the premises. It shows that Heineken are a responsible operator, councillors, and that is an important consideration for you when arriving at your decision today. At the interim steps hearing, we did not oppose the suspension of the premise licence, and we agreed that this was the right action to take in order for all parties involved to investigate the matter further. Prior to the interim steps hearing, Ken and myself were already in communication with West Midlands Police to arrange a meeting with Mr. Taj and Mr. Reader to discuss the summary review. Now, both Ken and I met with Mr. Taj and Mr. Reader on the following Wednesday, the 9th of November, to discuss the matter. We explained to both officers that Heineken were to, as I've said, investigate the matter internally, and we did, as Mr. Taj has stated in his witness statement, we did make both officers fully aware that we comprehend the gravity of the situation and the impact that the premises has had or has been having on the local residents. We felt that the meeting was productive and explained that we wanted to work with Westminster Police to address the current issues with the operation of the George V. Now, Ken and I were sent the representations of Councillor Tilsley and Christina McCulloch last Sunday, I think it was 21st of November. We had a call, as you've heard, with Councillor Tilsley on Wednesday last week and with Christina on Thursday. These calls were very productive, councillors, and we discussed their representations, our disappointment at the current situation with the tenant's operation of the pub, and Heineken's future plan and proposals for the site. And as you've heard, Christina was very impressed, and she commented that this is the first time that consultation has taken place with a premise licence holder when dealing with an expedited review. So going back to when the initial issues arose with Elaine Medford as a DPS right up to now, Heineken, which to be fair has largely been through Ken, has fully engaged with the responsible authorities. We have been proactive in our approach in discussing the issues with all the parties and to make them aware of what we propose in terms of the premise licence. Now, as you've heard, councillors, what we do propose in terms of the premise licence and the action we would respectfully request you take today is to suspend the premise licence for a period of, say, 8 weeks, and to attach a condition to the licence stipulating that the premise licence holder shall not reopen the premises nor appoint a DPS until full consultation has been taken or has been carried out, with the West Midlands Police and the licensing authority, and approval has been provided by these parties. I submit that this would be an appropriate and proportionate decision today, councillors, for a number of reasons. Furthermore, and as you heard from Hiram, and it's in his witness statement, he states that our proposal is a significant concession and nothing like what has been offered by premises in this situation before. It is evident that for this premises to once again strive and return to being an asset for the local community and the local area of Sheldon, Heineken's task is to find the right operator who has the right concept and offering. Now, with having both the police's and the licensing's input on that, with this condition, it guarantees that all parties involved have confidence that the right person and concept has been found and can be implemented at the premises. So how I foresee it working, councillors, in practice is this, effectively. So Ken would approach me after what he considers he's found as a suitable operator. Given the previous issues with the premises, it may be best to look for an operator that has more of a food offering, as you've heard already. We would then approach both the police and licensing with the proposal, and this would include business plans, and we would discuss any modifications that may be needed to be made to the premise licence, such as conditions at that time. Now, with this proposal, if the police and or licensing do not have confidence in it, then the premises will remain closed, and Ken is effectively back to the drawing board to find another suitable operator with the right concept. And in any event, councillors, the premises will remain closed until such a time that all parties are happy with what is being proposed. But we need a premise licence to attract the correct and the most suitable operator. Now, it's when and not if we come to an agreed position with both the police and licensing on a new proposal. We would also make Councillor Tilsley aware of what is now planned for the site. Prior to any opening, we would also propose to host an open evening at the premises with the authorities, Councillor Tilsley, Ken, myself, the new operator, and more importantly, the local residents, to show them what is planned for the pub and how this is going to operate. Heineken want the premises to be successful, and the only way that is going to work is by getting the local community behind it. Now, from speaking with Councillor Tilsley, I am aware that there was previously a High Sheldon Resident Association, and from his objection, he said that they used to use the community room. And now, obviously, I appreciate that with COVID, Resident Association may have been dissolved, but should they still be in existence or reformed at a later date, then obviously we would make them aware and consult with them on the proposals as well. Now, I appreciate that the police and all the other interested parties, as you've heard, are seeking revocation of the premise licence. There's no other option available, and it's too late, is one word or one comment I heard. Now, I would submit, councillors, as I've stated previously, that the George V pub has been in situ, as you've heard, since the 1950s. So it's had some form of licence since then, and it was converted into a premise licence in 2005 when the licence came into force. So I would submit, councillor, that the George V hasn't always caused an issue for the local community. And with our proposal to effectively have all parties have their say and input on the future operation and running of the premises, Heineken can restore the George V to be a premises that is an asset to the local community. I think it is both. I think it is important, as both Ken on behalf of Heineken and myself have demonstrated with the review, that engagement with all authorities and all parties who are invested in this is critical, and we want that to continue, including with the local neighbourhood police team. Now, we all know, councillors, that when the premises reopen in whatever format, on whatever conditions are on the licence and whatever concept it is, as you heard from Christine McCullough, that these undesirable clientele will possibly attempt again to come into the premises and push their weight around. However, the difference this time is that should the concept be one of a carvery or a hungry horse, and there are robust conditions on the premises licence, and the premises are supported by the police and licensing authority, then these undesirable clients will quickly learn that the George V pub is not the same pub that it once was. The new proposal may also lead to a complete overhaul of the premises, which is likely to be a substantial financial investment, and it could include a change of name, which I have witnessed in the past can work to remove any stigma which was associated with the pub's previous format. Now, I mentioned the Hungry Horse councillors, as I am aware of a somewhat success story for another premises in Sheldon, which to me seem to have identical issues to what has been experienced by the George V over the last couple of years. Now, the premises I'm referring to is the Crane Pub restaurant on Cranes Park Road, some half a mile down the road from the George V. I have included in my supporting evidence, councillors, a news article from the Birmingham Mail dated 26th of October 2005, in which the headline reads, "Pub gets its last chance. A bad neighbour pub, which has been the scene of drunken violence and antisocial behaviour, has been warned that it is in the last chance saloon." The article goes on to state that more than 250 local residents objected to the pub's proposals, and Yardley MP John Hemming told the city's licensing subcommittee at the time that we would be looking to close the Sheldon Inn, as the pub was named at that time, we'd be looking to close that down completely unless there is a tremendous improvement. Now, I'm not sure, councillors, of what happened to these premises for a number of years after this article in 2005, but what I am aware of is that in 2013, Green King, another major pub company, owned the premises and decided to rebrand it as a Hungry Horse model, which is a family-friendly dining operation. Now, the major variation for this premises in 2013, it went to the licensing subcommittee because I think a resident objected, because this resident said, look, we've had issues at this premises before. We're still not sure. We understand it's going to change to this family dining model, but we're not sure it's still going to be associated with how it was previously running. So he went to the committee, and the committee did not consider that the proposed operation of the premises as a family-friendly dining pub within a residential area, so exactly like the George V location, would have a significant adverse impact upon any of the four licensing objectives. Now, so neither Ken and myself are sitting here today, councillors, confirming that the George V will be turned into a Hungry Horse premises. But I submit that the history of the Sheldon Inn, now called the Crane Pub, gives an example of how a troubled pub in this exact residential area just up the road in Sheldon can be transformed and turned around to once again be a well-run premises for the local community. What we are proposing, councillors, is not an impossible task. Given Heineken's scale and with the authority support and input that we've heard that they will put in today, we will be able to find the right operator with the right concept to restore the George V. Councillor Tilsley even refers to the Cranes Pub transformation in his objection on page 37 of your agenda. He states that the Cranes Park was a local pub which unfortunately developed a reputation for rowdy customers and drugs, due to which there were many complaints from residents, with the police having a regular presence. However, the brewery decided to close, remodel and relaunch as a local community pub, serving meals and with a family orientation. We have made all parties involved of our proposals that we put forward to you this morning, councillors, and from speaking with Ben Reader, the police have fully appreciated both Ken and mine's openness and transparency in dealing with the review. Ben has commented to me that if we did not have any other parties objecting, he considers that West Midlands Police and Heineken could come to an agreed position on this proposal. From speaking with Councillor Tilsley and Christina McCulloch, they also seem to share the police's confidence in our proposal. Nobody wants to see a disused pub if they can help it, councillors. And as Ms McCulloch said, especially over the last 18-20 months, businesses have been struggling. We're all aware of the devastating impact that the pandemic has had on the hospitality sector. Nobody wants to see a boarded up pub. However, the action of some of the previous tenants and operators cannot and won't be tolerated, and that is why we are effectively here today. However, I am asking you to have confidence in Heineken as a responsible operator, and evidenced by the steps that both Ken and myself have taken, not just since the summary review was issued earlier this month, but since the premises was acquired by Heineken in March 2018, that they want to create a successful premises over a sustained period of time, which once again can return to being an asset for the local community. So now I therefore respectfully request, councillors, that you do not revoke the premise licence today, but take our submission on board and decide what we consider to be appropriate steps in suspending the premise licence for a period of time and attaching the proposed condition to the licence, so that all parties can engage and agree on the future running of the George V pub. Thank you. Ken, is there anything you want to add?
No, not at the moment. That's fine. Thank you.
You're on mute, Chair, I'm afraid.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that, Mr. Domnio. Councillor Straker-Wells, do you have any questions?
Yes, Chair, if I may. You've pinpointed the issue of having a pub in a residential area if you want that pub to serve the whole community, and how to avoid a standoff between the community and the pub. My question is about the question of management, accountability and enforcement, because this pub has had a history of a number of DPSs. It's had a whole history of all sorts of difficulties in terms of who is responsible, who is in charge, and what controls there are in place. And I have in mind, for instance, how to counter the reputation the pub has actually acquired. How you inspire confidence in the local community who live there, who are obviously terrified. How do you discourage misuse of people from outside of the area who might not even be using the pubs over things like drugs? But I suppose most terrifying is how you counter reprisals against individuals, which I probably find to be the most disturbing of all of this. So I thank you very much for your upbeat presentation and for your optimistic view of what can be done. But I would like to know about how you avoid difficulties with management, accountability and enforcement that have actually bedeviled this establishment.
Mr. Domnio?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Wells. I think the action taken, as I said, we closed, or Ken instructed the tenant to close the premises the night or the day after we were served with the review papers. Mr. Whitecross and his staff will no longer be involved with any reform of the premises, and with our proposal to, as I said, rebrand it and to engage with the police and licensing authority on how the premise is going to operate, then everybody can have the input and the say on how it basically affect the premises are going to operate. It may be, as Mr. McCulloch has said, and as I said in my submission, it may be that even if the premises are to reopen as a hungry horse model, I'm just using that as the example, it may be that door staff are needed for a certain amount of time, as you've heard from Councillor Tilsley. But effectively, until Ken finds an operator who he considers suitable, and until we approach the police and licensing and go, look, this is the operator, this is their business model, at that point we can then discuss kind of the terms of the premise license in terms of the conditions and go, well, okay, well, effectively something that it may be right, door staff on for the first 3 months of trading, then we'll revisit that and go, do we still need that? Have there been any issues? Is that effective or not? But it possibly, I think at the kind of the consultation point, that would be kind of the best time to approach. This premise license needs to look like this in terms of the timings, in terms of the conditions, for it to be appropriate. And I think if the authorities are on board with that, and we have an operator who is on board with that, and as I said, and I'm not just quoting the Cranes pub in Sheldon, it's a good example of this kind of transformation, what could turn around. But I have witnessed it in other areas of a pub that's been there for a long time. It's kind of fallen into a bit of disrepute with a few operators. But what I can see from this is that it's been, like I said, it's effectively been a different operator, but they've not. There's been no change of concept, so they've just traded it as it is. Where a new operator, new concept, authorities consultation, form a premise license which fits everybody's agenda. I believe that's the way forward with it.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that. Councillor Beecham, any questions?
Thank you, Chairman. This has gone on for so long in so many guises that we have had nothing specific put before us to say exactly how they propose to deal with it. It's just words at the moment, and finding compromises and dealing with the police and the other authorities isn't or hasn't been top of the necessity for doing the transformation, that it gives us, or gives me certainly, concern that nothing has taken place in a positive manner, in fact, quite the reverse in the last few years. And you're then asking us to say, oh, yes, we will not consider revoking because you are taking control of this. And you're offering that the other pub, the Crane, would be a prime example of what takes place in the area. It's a very thin thread to hang on to the license to say that you can do things that you haven't really got planned out. And the concern that we've got with that isn't coming through. What do you have as positive things to do to stop, to revoke the revoke?
Mr. Dominic?
Thank you, Councillor. Well, as I said, we closed, or Ken instructed the tenant to close the premises prior to the interim steps hearing. Now, I appreciate what you're saying, Councillor, and probably everybody's, apart from mine and Ken in this call or this hearing's confidence in our proposal is probably quite low. We are not asking for no action to be taken. We are saying, look, a suspension of the licence. I appreciate you can suspend a licence for up to 3 months. We're asking for 8 weeks. But with the condition on the premise licence, it's there in black and white. It's not just words, Councillor. And it's clear that Heineken and myself appreciate the kind of the gravitas of this whole situation. And with having that condition on the premise licence, it means that, look, this premises is going to stay closed until all parties, the police, licensing, all of them are happy with what we are proposing. As I said, if Christina McCulloch turns around and goes, I'm not happy with what you're proposing because of X, Y, Z, then, as I said, that's it. The premises can't reopen. We are back to the drawing board to find a new operator. It's there as a condition on the licence. And I think everybody's aware of, obviously, the situation with what is called for this summary review. But having a condition on the licence is more, and I appreciate, is more than just our words. It's there in black and white. We've not proposed to just put a DPS in and trade as normal, because that's not the way we wanted to operate. So having a condition on the licence, it puts it there.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Beecham. One question from me, Mr. Domino. The model you've adopted appears to be based on sort of distant management by an individual who, although they're the DPS, they appoint a manager. Would any emerging model of new management with the food offer be based on having a DPS on the premises? It could be, clearly, it could be insisted on, obviously, but what's the view of the company in terms of the appropriateness of that?
No, thank you, Chair. If it's this, as I said, the majority of Heineken's estate are this lease and tenanted model. So Heineken, or Punch Partnerships Pty Limited, as a subsidiary, they hold the licence, and there's a lease agreement, and the tenant buys the beer, and that's how it works. Now there is a percentage of the estate of Heineken which is more of a managed kind of operation. There's about 120 premises in their estate, so you can tell by the kind of small percentage, out 2,500, how that works. But what can be done, and I appreciate, obviously at this point it's very difficult to put conditions on the licence because we don't know what other premises are going to operate in the future, and in what form, what concept. But at the consultation process with the police and licensing, it may be prudent, or police and licensing may turn around, it may be prudent to go, well, there needs to be a condition on the licence which says that a personal licence holder needs to be on all time, or there needs to be 4 personal licence holders employed at the premises. So measures like that, which will be picked up at the consultation with police and licensing, because effectively it's finding the right operator with the right concept, and then, like I said, fine tuning the premises licence. Because I've heard from Mr. Taj that he said there's been a lot of conditions put onto the licence. There was one condition been added to the licence over the years, and that was the car park area. But at this consultation process, which I'm proposing, we would then discuss what conditions are needed, such as, like you said, the DPS to be on a Friday, Saturday night, or a personal license holder to be in situ on those times. So that's how I would propose to go through it.
Okay, thank you very much for that. I think that's all our questions. Is that your representation for the moment? You'll have a chance to sum up, obviously, at the end, Mr.
Thank
Donnelly.
you. That's it from me. I don't know whether Ken wants to add anything, but that's, I don't know. It's hard when you're not in the same room.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for that. We'll move on then. And in fact, we are now into representations, closing representations, and I'll come first to Councillor Tilsley. Would you like to say anything in summation, Councillor Tilsley? Thank you, Chairman. I've listened very intently to the submission from Mr. Donnelly. I honestly feel that we are in a situation where there is not the possibility of rebranding this pub in the same way that the Crane was done. And I'll give you the reason that the community, it may only be half a mile away, but is completely different. There are quite dramatic changes taking place. As you'll be aware, Chairman, and colleague councillors, in the makeup of the population. And I fear that it doesn't matter what rebranding takes place, that it wouldn't be a success. And obviously, there is only so much, so many losses that Heineken can take on individual premises. The reputation is such that, as I've said, local residents are unlikely to use it for a long, long time, if ever again. So I am of the opinion, unfortunately, as with the Stirrup Cup, as with the Good Companions, just to mention two pubs in the locality, that the revocation of the premise licence is the only way. And I would say on the food point, Chairman, if I may, that the Wheat Sheaf is a Toby, the Arden Oak is a Harvester, and we've already mentioned the Crane public house, which is food led, and even the local club serves food. So it is quite a competitive market, and all have recognised that having a wet led pub is not the way. It has to be food led, and there is considerable competition within the local community. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you, Chair.
Chair.
You're on mute, Chair.
Chair, you're on mute. Also, Chair, could you ask Councillor Tilsley to address you on the interim steps and what should happen to them and why? Thank you. Right. Okay, Councillor Tilsley. I think you've said you're in favour of revocation, but what other comment do you have on the interim steps? Well, the interim steps are that the licence is suspended for 8 weeks to find the right operator, and it will remain closed in the interim. As I've said, the food-led competition within the local area is very competitive. And I realistically don't see that there is a way forward for this particular site. You know, I'm happy to talk to the Heineken on their proposals, but I am deeply sceptical as to whether any operator could make a living out of the site. Okay, thank you very much for that.
And now Ms McCulloch from Licensing Enforcement.
Yes, thank you, Chair. It is not, just like to say, it's not the responsibility of West Midlands Police or enforcement to ensure that the premises is operated legally. It is a responsibility of the licence holder, even if it is a tenanted premises. This is not a premises that has fallen into a bit of disrepute. The licence holder, even with the business the nature of the business, still has a responsibility to ensure that the business operates legally. In my opinion, the licence holder has failed miserably. They have had so many DPSs, designated premise supervisors. It's proven that none can control the situation. In fact, we had one DPS that was put forward that was very strong. She was driven out of the premises. So, as they've said, Heineken has owned the premises and the licence for 3 years now. I feel that they should have done more sooner and not wait until it got to this level of crime and disorder. We would have thought that, I mean, as I've said, we would have thought that one of the DPSs was a strong DPS. That didn't work. This type of management, this type of setup for these premises is not working. The licence holder was aware of the problems in August of 2020. They put that in writing to us. Again, they removed the DPS. Again, it was a change of DPS. All the way through, the problem has been dealt with by a change in DPS. It's come to this now where they're saying maybe now we need to rebrand. It seems to me that it is too late to rebrand. The reputation that the business has got cannot be got rid of by changing it to a food-led premises when it is still going to be a pub that people can come in and where there's a car park where people can congregate and meet. Residents live in fear of their lives. They have a right to a normal life, a quiet life. People have to work shifts. They've not been able to. I mean, can we honestly be satisfied that a rebranding will prevent crime and disorder, public safety, prevention of public nuisance? I am not convinced that it can. I'm not convinced that the reputation can change. I believe that it has gone too far. And it is with that in mind that I would say that I don't agree with the proposals that have been put forward by the licence holder. However, if committee decide that those are the sanctions, that's the route they will follow, I will, of course, work with them to try and ensure that the business can be operated legally. So it is with that in mind that I would ask that the committee consider revoking the licence. And that changes my submission. That's my submission. Sorry. Thank you.
Okay. The interim steps involved the removal of the designated premises supervisor, Mr. Whitecross. Do you have a view on that?
No, I think that Mr. Whitecross was not suitable. He was never suitable for the business. I don't feel that the responsibility, I realise that he's been removed. I don't feel that the blame can be put at the door of Mr. Whitecross. I believe that the the premises licence has the overall responsibility for the running of the premises. Okay. So yes, okay. I agree that he be removed.
All right, thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Okay, now on to, thank you for that, Ms. McCulloch. Now on to Mr. Taj for West Midlands Police. Mr. Taj, do you want to sum up and again, please tell us what you think should happen to the interim steps and why?
Thank you, Chair. First, let's go back to the point that Mr. D'Amelio put forward about Heineken leasing out premises. Obviously, you mentioned that they've done it across 2,000 properties, I believe the number was given. Also, Westminster Police licensing are aware this is a common practice that does happen with premises they're leased out and profits taken in certain percentages, here, way, shape, form, where the new management goes in, buys the stock and sells it, etc., etc. This does work in our premises. It did say in our representation, there's just concerns that it doesn't work with this location to move forward. So that's one of the things with the way that they manage that property. Again, the proposal put forward by the license holder with regards to the conditions stay closed and regarding consultation around change of concept is very generous. And if this is the way that the committee feels is the most proportionate way forward, Westminster Police Licensing would engage with the license holder to discuss how George V could open in such a successful way. It has been made clear by everyone here, including the license holders, that George V can't continue in its current form and shouldn't continue. So, but I think the most proportionate way forward for the residents, at least, and along with promoting the license objectives, is revocation. I think that's the most suitable way of moving forward. In regards to the interim steps, the license is currently suspended. I think that should remain. They have already said Andrew Whitecross and his team will remain, will no longer have a part in George V. So we think the interim steps should remain.
Okay, thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Taj. And then finally on to Mr. Domleo for the licence holder for closing submission. Mr. Domleo.
Thank you, Chair. As I said, our client, I'll keep this very brief. Our client acquired these premises in March 2018. So from then to date, there have been 4 DPSs. From hearing everything that's been submitted today, Ms. McCulloch said she has been impressed with the premise licence holder approach. As well, communities do change, and the fact that there is possibly, well, there's a harvester and another food operation nearby, because of the competition, that shouldn't be a consideration, councillors. All parties, as you've heard, are willing to engage and to agree on the right operator, the right concept and the right conditions on the premise licence. Now, I appreciate, as I said, everybody on this call, apart from myself and Ken, are probably sceptical about this proposal and this approach, but it would be a condition on the premise licence, and we need a premise licence to attract the correct operator. And Mr. Taj, in his witness statement, says, I think it's on page 2, no, 4, sorry, I get there. He says that if continue to operate, referring to obviously the premises, if continue to operate in its current form, the premises would continue to fail to promote the licence objectives. The operative word is in its current form. Everybody's recognised, I think, as the firm has said, in its current form, regardless of who the DPS or who the operator is or who the tenant is, this premises doesn't work. And it echoes very similar to, and I probably I keep going back to it, but I think it's so important and so imperative at this point on it. It echoes the issue with the Cranes pub and how that, or the Sheldon Inn was called at the time, and how that was transformed. And I appreciate Councillor Tilsley saying, well, look, although that's half a mile down the road, it's different people, different community, but look, it still was transformed from this undesirable drugs den, by the sounds of it, into a premises which is now running. There's no issues with it, and that is what could be proposed and would be proposed for the George V. Now, the Cranes pub in 2005 was given a last chance. Now, I'd ask you councillors today to give us the last chance, to give Heineken, with their scale and their power in the market, to give them and us the last chance with the George V pub to transform it back to being, as I could see from many years, and from that one resident for 25 years getting in, back to being a local community pub. Thank you. Well, in terms of the interim steps, we don't oppose them. Andrew Whitecross has gone, and like I said, the premises will remain closed until we find the right operator and everybody's happy. So we don't oppose the interim steps staying in place. Ken, is there anything you want to add?
Thank you.
Sorry, Chair.
No, nothing to add.
Okay, so Mr. Domleo, that's your final submission. So thank you very much for your help today, and thank you to everybody who's contributed today. We now are asking all parties to leave the MS Teams meeting, and the members, the committee lawyer and the committee manager will go into private session while the subcommittee makes its decision. You'll be notified of the decision of the subcommittee before the end of the statutory time limit. Again, thank you very much to everyone for your contributions today. We'll now adjourn. There'll be a 5-minute comfort break. So colleagues, can you rejoin me at just past 12 o'clock? And then we'll deliberate. So thank you very much. That is the end of the public hearing.
Sorry, Chair, if I just may, we'll get the decision in writing. We won't get it.